stay in the game for long. You're going to get it right. But are you able to stay in the game for long? How big is the market? What is the problem definition? Very important. This is something that makes them money, saves time. Is it a problem big enough to solve? Is it a problem that depends on an infrastructure to function? From zero to product market fit, understand the business side of what you're doing for you to stay longer in the business. Because if you stay longer in there, even if you pivot, you actually find Goshen at the end, because you didn't just die, you had to grow. Do something that is impacting people by extending yourself in whatever capacity that you find yourself. It is sort of like a framework that works. The people, the process, the product, any sort of role. Get as much information as you can about the role. Read as much as you can. Check the trajectory of the role. What is it saying in 2 years, in 5 years? Is it top roles in the world? The people part of the role is like the largest part of the role, to be honest. It's not about the PRD writing, the scoping, the customer interviews, not all that. It's very difficult to find practical examples. You have to grow by experience. If you don't experience it, you wouldn't know how to manage things. Be down there, serve everybody, but serve them in different ways, in the language they understand. Entry point is that very, very difficult. Very difficult. It is an experience-based role. Take it or leave it. My dad wanted me to do civil engineering. When I posted to Boa in Edo State, I spent just 1 weekend there, and I realized that this.
Hi Tobi, welcome.
Hi Joshua, thanks for having me.
Before we dive into open source, community, product management, let me take you back a bit. What were the earliest spark or influences that made you say, oh, I want to do tech, I want to, instead of maybe the arts, I want to
so back in school, I was supposed to maybe
secondary school,
backtrack that after secondary school,
okay.
So my dad wanted me to do civil engineering. I mean, this is a secret, but it's out on the camera. So when I went for the application, I intentionally chose a different course because I didn't want to do civil engineering. So back then I saw mining engineering. I felt it was cute. And outside of that, the motivation was to do something hard, number one. Number two, to do something that you don't find too many people doing. And I felt, okay, we could make something happen here. So I chose that. So it wasn't a surprise when I got mining engineering. I know what I did. So, so I didn't choose civil engineering at all. But because my dad wanted us to do that, even my brother actually did civil engineering. So I would say that's like the start of everything. But journey down to 4 years down the line, we're now on IT. I got like through a connection, I posted to Boa in Edo State. I spent just 1 weekend there. Then I realized that this is not for me.
I don't think I'm made for this.
I'm not gonna make it. So I figured it was too much of a work for me to do, but I need to sit more on the brainwork side of this particular career path. So I had to walk my sideways back to Lagos. So I had to do it at the ministries where you have to do more of behind the desk work, because at that moment I knew that I wasn't going to survive here, working in a quarry or one factory. I mean something related to mine. I wasn't going to survive that. So that was the first part back from sideways back to school. 500. I knew there was something different I wanted to do. It was like had a new revelation of exactly what I wanted to do, and it was definitely going to be behind the computer, based on my experience during the sideways period. So NYC came, and it was a no-brainer. Even before that, I'd start making plans. I didn't have a laptop, so I had to make something happen. I got a laptop. In fact, my journey in tech started as digital marketing. Like I started learning digital marketing, and I found it interesting. I went through the book course. Quite some work there. Did a bit of work, but I realized that I needed to go deeper. And obviously, the entry point was digital marketing, but it was tech eventually. But I knew I needed to go deeper into that. But that's like my story, I would say.
So you had mentioned how you wanted to just do difficult things. You wanted to do things out of the norm. What was regular? What helped you have this kind of perspective to life that, I want to do something different. I want to I don't want to just follow the immediate status quo. Were there early influences that made you feel that I can do something different?
So I think growing up, right, I've always tried to put myself in something that is not normal. Just because if it's normal, everybody can do it, right? So I rather just focus on picking the hard things and pick them up and do them. Through secondary school as well, obviously needed to do science and all. I mean, it was my interest, needed to do science. Back then, I tried maybe, because medicine was sort of like a thing. So I got interest for a period to do medicine. But I figured it's okay, it's a hard thing, it checks the box for hard thing, but I don't think I'm so passionate about this. Then engineering came in. So it was always good to be Tobi, do the hard thing. You don't want to do things that everybody, is crowding towards that. Do something different, because by doing something different, something hard rather, you kind of like make a difference. I mean, it was long years after I figured that doing the hard thing is the best thing. Even though it didn't make sense to me back then, but my attention was more geared towards, let me do something different. And different in this case would definitely be hard. So it was just growing up, I figured I needed to be in that path.
Interesting. How is that mindset of doing the hard things, putting your head into it, and then just making something out of the unusual? How has it played out now in building products and then working with clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's a chaotic industry.
I can imagine.
So it's a chaotic role, let's start with that. And you also find yourself in a chaotic industry. So it balances, because you're coming from a perspective that you want to do the hard things. You want to crack things up. You want to build stuff that are crazy. You want to do things that people think are really hard to do. But it might take time, but you want to. But I think that experience of growing up has actually shaped me into doing more in products, because I figured that I needed a role that it wasn't just a random role. In fact, my story getting into product management was I started writing code. I was in front end. I at some point did mobile, just learning a lot of stuff. Like I've done a lot of things. At the time I was doing design, just a bunch of stuff, right? But I figured that every of those things brought me into put it all together in a role that allows me to do more in that regard. So at one part of my life, I had like this, sort of like doing business with some friends. So the business acumen came in. I'm like, okay, this balances your technology and business and whatever it is you've gathered in the industry. How about you go into a chaotic role? Because I see it as a very chaotic role, to be honest. It's a non-code tech of tech, but it is a very chaotic role, and sometimes very hard to do product management. So I figured the difficult part of building products, one, also what the role also entails is a little difficult. Why not? I mean, why not go into it?
Interesting. That was like a beautiful perspective, like you just shared. How like product managing has to do with a lot of roles and trying to get things done. So a lot of product managers have shared several experiences of difficult times with designers, developers, with stakeholders, trying to find the common ground and make sure that the product gets launched or that feature gets launched. So what has been your experience, and how do you manage all of the expectations to make sure that the product succeed?
So I mean, good question there, Joshua. I think what I would just say is, it is very chaotic. At the same time, I figured I can sort of like thrive in chaos. If things are going to, not in relationship. I don't like Wala when it comes to that. I don't like Wala when it comes to that. But then when it comes to the business world itself, career and all, I learned over time that I actually do thrive in chaos, which means I like to be in the situation whereby there's a lot of pressure. Right, number one, and you're trying to get things done and you have to put people together. So it's kind of like it just naturally comes to me, because now bringing people together, having to get this guy to do this, having to get this person to get this done, whereby this other person's role, or probably task rather, is holding the person back, and you need to combine these things and you need to follow up. So what really helps is just understanding that there's a people part of the role. The people part of the role is like the largest part of the role, to be honest. It's not about the PRD writing, the scoping, the customer interview. It's not all that. The people part of the role is the most important. I mean, that's why I hardly even find practical examples of stakeholder management. It's very difficult to find practical examples. I think one of the things I shared back in my community like a few months back, that's one part I know I want to ask more questions, because the people part that requires you managing different people with different priorities on the project, it's very difficult. That means you have to grow by experience. If you don't experience it, you wouldn't know how to manage things. Having to lean into people more, understanding how to get them to do things that naturally they wouldn't want to do, but because of the kind of relationship you build with them, you're able to get them to do those things. I was able to lean more into the people parts, to understand how to relate to people further. So it's easier, be it designer, developer, it's easier to get them to do, because sometimes things can be out of your control completely, and you only rely on that person being empathetic towards you and say, okay, let me just do this out of my inconvenience. Let me just do this, and it can only come by the type of relationship you build with that person over time. So I think leaning more into the people part has really helped me in sort of managing the chaos in this case when it comes to product management.
Yeah. There's no how some things you just have to learn it by experience.
By experience, yeah.
Working and then relating with people, you learn how to manage people and all of that. But then, what would still be your recommended strategy to still learn the people aspect?
Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe after we'll now go into the more technical.
Okay,
parts.
great. So I think one advice is the role is a very interesting role because it does teach you a lot about life. I'm just trying to draw the parallel now. Is number one is you're not leading, right? You're sort of like serving these people at the same time. It's like a servant leadership role. Because I see some product managers rule on that fact and they say, oh, you're managing people and sort of, you're not exactly managing people, you're actually serving them. Because the very role or job now of product management is to do the things that people don't want to do. There's some things or some tasks that are going to be there that you will be the one to do it. Right, so it means that if you're able to serve everybody and you don't serve them the same way, the way you relate with sales, for example, as a product person, it's not the same way you relate with technical, right? Even back to design, it's the different. So it's as if you're explaining one simple concept in different ways. So the advice is learn first and foremost, you are not leading anybody. Let's just leave you're leading a team and all that. You are serving them. I think this comes to the ideal definition of leadership in quotes, right? Is that you're actually serving people to get better. And one thing I've learned so far is by doing so, the experience people have with you during that period is what matters. It's not how long you've worked. So learn to serve. Don't see it as a role it's a leadership role in quotes because you are responsible for everybody. if anybody is slack on the team, you are responsible for it. Right? Down to anybody doing anything. So it's a responsibility role that if you can absorb a lot of pressure and you can at the same time still sort of like serve the team because you're trying to bring everybody together, it might be difficult to really thrive in product management because you are managing a lot of things. So best advice is be down there, serve everybody, but serve them in different ways, in the language you understand. I know this thing might sound like cliche, but it's not exactly cliche. There are a lot more things to deep it down. Like if I now start talking about how to deal with, how to speak with designers, how to handle developers, some sort of things comes in. Some advice that I can give there is try to learn one thing about all of them. It helps with the communication, right? This guy is telling you, okay, he's trying to come up with the API that needs to be consumed. If you don't really understand that concept, they can give you 1 week and they'll just be giving you boo-boo. So like having that part also helps because you're able to understand and communicate in that regard, and they see that this person actually not know everything, but you know something that they can relate with. So in the case of design now, just understanding basic concept of design, right, actually helps, right? Sales as well, you don't necessarily have to be a salesperson. Just understand their sales life cycle. So you understand when they're providing some feedback that should be priority or not, based on how it affects revenue. Just simple information like that or insight can actually help on how you then relate with individual teams.
That mindset shift from trying to say, oh, I'm managing people, I'm like their boss, to just saying that, okay, like I'm here to serve these people. And then you emphasize the importance of also like learning a bit about all of these different parts. So you understand, you can speak their language and you're able to like get them to like do stuff that can help the product or the business actually become successful. Let's talk about the technical aspect. So I'm sure there are maybe young people that are aspiring to become great product managers. What would be your recommended pathway for them to like learn and then grow?
Very good question. I gave this advice months ago and this is what I said. Okay. So I would say that don't let anybody coerce you or without the right information about a role. Don't just jump into a role. I've seen people oftentimes see product management role as just one very fine role and fancy role to jump into. But things have shifted over the years. I remember back in 2020, 2021, it was just becoming more viral, product management, and you have a lot of people throwing out courses there and doing all of that. I think there was, I wouldn't call it a bubble, but there were a lot of roles back then, and there were people who were just getting to know about that. It was then a shift from project management. I mean, this happened years before, but it became mainstream here in Nigeria, right? Where people had to now say, okay, this is now a big difference between project and product management, right? where product is just, just the simple analogy I use basically to differentiate is just, a woman is probably pregnant through that period, this project, but throughout the life cycle of the child is product management, which is a lot more explosive in that regard. So people see that as a very simple role to jump into, but I would say it's not. So for any sort of role, this is general advice, any sort of role, get as much information as you can about the role. Read as much as you can. Even before you enroll for a course, read as much as you can. You can check the trajectory of the role. What is it saying in 5 years? What is it saying in 2 years? The top roles in the world. There was a time, I think back in 2021, it was like top 3 or so. So it was really, so that point, people made a lot, I would say. So understanding the trend also matters while choosing a role in tech. I know there are a lot of other roles that are not exactly technical. There are some that are very technical. Also understand your capacity to do that. If you're not very analytical, you might not be able to pick up some roles. But if you're very, obviously, you can. If you're someone that your mind is explosive, chaotic, there is a role for you as well. Just find your best fit. Obviously, by making more research and understanding your role, and you're able to pick. But if I'm to advise somebody to pick product management, I don't advise people any longer to pick product management because I wouldn't say it's saturated. It's just that we're getting to a point whereby you then need to separate junior from mid-level to senior. And for now, you don't have too many senior product managers. So there's that gap where people are now collapsing roles and all of that. So people are not looking out for more people in that regard. Even entry point is that very, very difficult. Very difficult because now very difficult. Not too many people are putting up internship and entry roles. So I would advise, if it's still product management, best advice is read more, right? Understand the role and just find something. Like I will always say, it is an experience-based role. Take it or leave it. The books, all the theory, we also did all of that, the theory and all of that. It will make sense when you're actually on the road. And there's some things you will never.
Projects and then you're working with people.
Exactly, you will never learn them. You can have the theoretical knowledge, but you will never be able to put it to practice if you don't actually experience. So if you're starting out, prioritize getting an experience, something that will help you work with teams, understand their language better. That would be your experience for any sort of interview. Because if you're jumping in without any sort of experience, there's some very interesting questions you'll be asked. I've interviewed product managers, so there's some very scenario-based questions I would like to ask because I would like to see how your experience is going to help the role to solve any problems as well. Because you need that experience, and we know how everything is. You can't easily get internships and all, but whether it's paid or not. In fact, one of the beautiful things that we do at Terntribe is also to help in that regard, that you're actually working on something with people that is not just going to sit, it's something that's speaking to social innovation. So that kind of thing will actually help you more outside of, you've picked product management now and you want to go into it, you've made your research. Also focus on the experience side and try to get that early enough. Don't focus too much on reading books. Read as much as you can. A fantastic book, be inspired. I love interesting books you can read, the courses and all of that. Consume that. At the same time, do have something that will serve as an experience for you because that would actually go a long way for you.
You have a lot more experience with how people recruit people into roles, whether it's project or whether it's product, and whether junior, middle, or senior, right? And then you emphasize the importance of experience. But then outside the experience, are there certificates you look out for? Are there contributions you look out for? That I understand our climb, right? Even though as tech is getting more popular, people are not asking for your maybe undergraduate degree in courses currently. Once you can do that thing, but then in your experience recruiting, what are the things you look out for?
Okay, fantastic. So now, what I look out for is, before I don't, but now I do. I want to know the product school you attended. I never did one officially though. I just did some online stuff. I didn't do one of these Otiva and the folks that we have now. Old school. We had side product management before then came to that. So I didn't do any of that. But I would say starting out, please try and get into one school. They've been able to put in a lot of things to help guide the experience side. I'm talking about things like your capstone project. Some of them try to extend it to internships. They just try to help you in that regard. So it would be a very brilliant way to start, whereby you're getting certificates in that area. So now I look at certification. even though it's not exactly an important point, right? But certification is the first, obviously. Then obviously your experience. But outside of experience, certification is one thing you look out for starting out. If you're towards mid-level, I would say advice is specialize a bit. So the good part of this is that you can have a lot of experience in, your building platform, B2B products, you're probably in credit, you're doing a lot of things. But there needs to be something you're specializing on for a period. That brings me to how I got into fintech. And I didn't want to get to the fintech as actually, I didn't want to at first. But by divine coincidence and obviously God's providence, that happened. And I figured that, oh yes, I should actually specialize. Because what it helps with is that you don't just find yourself with experience that are just floating. It's just a blanket experience, right? You know the basic, but you need some level of specific experience. I'm not campaigning to get into fintech because it's very chaotic. If you cannot go to bed, and you cannot, exactly. If you cannot spend your weekend also staying on standby because some people are doing something, don't get into it. But I'll say, if you find any sort of industry, health tech, any other industry, try and stay for a period. Be grounded in it for some time. It will help with a lot of things because obviously it's still the same transferable skills, but that knowledge gap is different. Like I always say, a regular PM is not a fintech PM. I don't have a bias towards it, it's just the truth. Because there's so many other things that you would need to learn, especially if you're now moving to the landscape of payments, you need to learn a lot of things. Unless you want to just leave it to the other people, like you don't want your experience to span across compliance, fraud, span across a bit of finance as well, unless you don't want to do that, which a normal PM role would not need. If you're building a platform for health, you wouldn't require that. But for health, for example, you have to still learn more. So what I'm trying to say is, get into it deep down, just dig it down to one particular experience. Ensure you have that for a period. It will help a lot because when people realize like you have a very niche experience in something, every other thing in product management are all general. But that experience and knowledge gap is what helps. For example, there are some roles I cannot apply for. I cannot apply to be in an health tech. I can pick it up, but then I wouldn't advise them to look out for somebody that is coming from fintech, even though it can happen. But I would say it might take a bit of time to gather the knowledge.
Maybe core payments.
Yes, a part of their solution that you can just. But then you see that niche experience now actually works. I realized that when you see maybe Reliance trying to employ, you would see it as part of their description. Some of these things, it might not be very evident, but you see that one of the requirements is actually that. Same way for payments. If you're trying to employ somebody, you have to look out for some sort of fintech. You've done something in that regard that makes you understand how money moves, for example. So again, is find it early and deep down outside of the certification. Try and get a niche experience that will help. You cannot just be, your CV cannot be all over the place. Everywhere. There's platform here, there's B2B here, there's health here, there's something here, there's AI here. It wouldn't really help in the long run when you get to mid-level because you're not in one particular. And I've seen how that has helped a lot of people. I read on LinkedIn today, one person just became CEO from product because obviously the role is supposed to help in that regard to become things like that because it's an expensive role. And I realized the person has grown a lot to be able to get there. And he did that by focusing on still fintech. If not, he wouldn't be able to get to the point whereby you're shifting in from
maybe
product.
Branched out to do something.
It won't be easy because the experience wouldn't be there, the knowledge wouldn't be there. So that would be my advice.
You mentioned product schools. What would be your top recommendations so people can look out for? I know you're not
in any order. I'm not telling anybody.
Yeah,
but I think getting in Otiva, I've got really good recommendation from Otiva. Hot School is also great. There's one more I'm trying to remember. Product that I'm not sure now if they have, but I think they do have like a product school. I know it's the community more, but I think they have like a product school as well. Aside from product school, they have like short courses they do, branching out product management, like things like customer interview. They have like very specific ones that you can do. But I think these guys are like very good. And if you're trying to move outside, there is one more. I can't remember. Is it product something? I can't remember now the name. It's one certification that you might actually want to get. I'm not so big on certification, but it's something I will still do. Especially this particular one I'm talking about, I will still do it. It's quite expensive, but I will still do it just to have it. Really, it's not is not really the criteria, because some of those things you've already picked up. But one thing about master classes like that and very interesting courses is that it exposes you to a lot more that you've not seen. Like you might be experiencing it, but you don't know this is it until you actually learn that
in a more structured
way. So I would say now start picking up, certification. It might not be important now, but I'm seeing that since everything is becoming very structured in the tech space, one way or the other, there will come a time where certification might actually be a thing, right? So just do it ahead, and you need to have the degree so you don't use it instead of you need it and you don't have it.
They don't have it. Sometimes it might not be too late.
It might be too late
to
catch
be able to get that opportunity.
Exactly, to do it.
You've helped, and then you work with several businesses to help them expand into different African markets, helping them to navigate compliance, payment, and taxes, right?
Yeah.
What does it take to help them build trust such that their products are, like people want to use their products and they need them and they depend on them?
So when it comes to expanding to other part of Africa, right? I mean, it's a different ballgame entirely. I think my very first experience with it was when we newly expanded into Zambia. It was a lot more experience. Culture shift. That was the biggest shift for me. Obviously, I'd worked with a distributed team before, but it was just 2 countries from Africa. Then it was some guys from Kenya, then we from Nigeria in a distributed team. So I understand more of the Kenyans, right? Because they are really close in terms of work culture to Nigeria. But to the other side, it was sort of new. So I came in, okay, it shall be the same thing, but I figured that it is not the same.
Different.
We Nigerians, we too they work. So it was a different ball game because we had a local team, right? So starting from the top in terms of work culture, working with them, we felt like, you guys, what are you guys chasing? But that's how we work. We want to get the result. We want to ensure we solve the problem. So that was like it was a shift for me. That okay, this is also different from any other African country I've worked with before in the past. So that happened first. Then down to actually the product. So it was not just building a product now, it was now understanding the landscape in terms of compliance. So obviously their PSSP license in Nigeria is not called PSSP there, it's different. So you have to learn that. I had to actually get into a payment school, Payment 360, to learn a lot of these things, right? Because I needed to fill that gap. It didn't just come by, I had to do it and get the certification and all. Because it was very important. Because it was a different landscape. Building for Nigeria, you can easily pick things up and all. But then you need to learn, right? Realize that you're working with maybe Bank of Zambia, they have the sort of regulations and all that you have to keep into. And the landscape is different. This same license can capture a lot of things that this other one wouldn't capture. It's the same everywhere, really. Some of them, they have licenses that capture a lot. That's like a like a blanket and all. An umbrella in this case, right? Because some are not. So you have to understand what it covers or not, because you don't want to fall into
what it takes also get them.
To get them, yes, get them again. I mean, fortunately, we moved by acquisition, so it was a lot more easier for us not having to chase license. It was just renewing and all. So the compliance bit of it was just a shift, right? Then coming down to the product, we realized, okay, now this is no longer Nigeria. It is many part of Africa, it's Momo now. It's a different ball game, right? Still very similar framework with probably something that you have with CAD, but still there's still sort of like distinction. Now, having to work in that regard, you realize that over 90% of people there, in terms of transaction, they already use Momo. Now, if you're coming with a lot of solutions, you need to build in that direction, right? And it was a no-brainer for us to say, okay, yes, we need to get we need to get this up. Even though CAD was there, the CAD would always have its own margins, in terms of business decisions and all. I mean, it's much more margin there. So it was a no-brainer that we needed to get into the product itself. How do we then get these businesses? That brought us down to another product we needed to create in the market, outside of being like a PF, a payment facilitator that is just creating a merchant aggregation platform for online and web, payments. It wasn't just going to be that. It was going to be something more deeper than that. And now focusing on the type of businesses, now you need to now focus more global businesses than local businesses, because now you're seeing how acquisition will happen. It's not the same way here. Some of these things, and you're starting out, so you need to obviously talk to people to get things done. So it was a no-brainer to just ensure that we combine our effort into two things that can actually drive revenue, or we focus on actually understanding the customer, these people more on what kind of product to build for them that would help. One beautiful product we had to bring up then was just to allow some of these entities that don't already have like a web presence to get them to a web presence, like you provide like a storefront or something for them to get their businesses online. It was just one thing we needed to do because we want to get you to pay, but the vehicle to get there, it's not available. So we have to also create the vehicle to get there. So in terms of payments, these are the things that we actually learned that was sort of like very different. So when expanded to other markets, we had a playbook already. So it was like, let's use it as a playground. Let's learn how we can learn. Then we could use this playbook for other markets. So getting to other markets, it became very easy, but they still have like different compliance landscape and regulations. But there's still one thin line there is that it's different from Nigeria. Just know that.
You just must learn.
Yeah,
and don't assume that, because this is how it works in this community in Nigeria,
it's
in
going to
this
work
society, it's going
somewhere
to work somewhere. Take time to learn the culture, learn how they operate, how they work. And that way you can like now adjust your own strategies to fit them. You necessarily don't need to just focus on this is the exact solution I have. Either you take it or leave it. So sometimes I need to maybe make adjustments and try and help them build
create the vehicles to make it happen
for them to really do cool stuff. Product market fit is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of startups and founders usually have, right? Getting their product from just when they've created it. So when it's like product market fit, that people are using it, they find value in it. So what are like frameworks that you use to help take a product from just that initial phase to product market fit? So
very, very brilliant question there, I would say, because this is one very interesting concept, especially when it comes to sometimes how we view ideas in this part of the world, right? We have a very culturally induced way of looking at startup.
Hello, sorry for the break. I know you're enjoying the episode. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please just hit the subscribe button, click the like button, and also leave a comment. Share it to friends and family. It goes a long way to help the channel. You can get right back into the video.
Startups are startups. They are not businesses. A business is more driven by revenue. Startup is you're trying to validate an idea over a period that you think you could build a business out of. So that cultural fit coming from Nigeria where we grew from is, you see it from the lens of a business. So when you see people raise funds, they try to validate idea, things fail, they pivot, things still fail. Sometimes it's just that we're not actually built to work in that region. Look at America, for example, things happen like because they view it more of a startup thing. That's why you can have people, all they're looking for is 100x, so they're putting their money into it. But we view it more from the business perspective. I think if we're able to really work, I'm still going to talk about product market. It's just a journey I'm trying to join together now. We're able to think of it from that point of view on how you run the business. You're able to balance these two ideas and entities together. Because when you call the product market fit, it's more tuned towards the startup. But then at the same time, you still also need to understand that you're coming from a business-minded cultural background whilst building. So taking the product from zero to product market fit, number one, time. Time is a factor. I think that if you're able to stay in the game for long, you're going to get it right. But are you able to stay in the game for long? Beautiful question. So it took time before Terntribe could build a product that people love. It took years. But they kept building and iterating. I think they are 3.0 in 2022 or 2023 now. It was like the product that came out, like, people loved it. That was when they had more other products, like Bata and all of that for their FX, recently Swap and all of that. It took time. You need time for that zero to product market fit. But what do you do with that time is all that matters. Now, there's so many other criteria that I look out for in terms of picking the market you want to work on. Is also a big influence in building new products. How big is the market? What is the problem definition? Very important. This is something that makes them money. It's something that saves time. It's something that makes them, feel there's some product like that. I mean, you can then define what exactly is a problem definition now. What bucket does it fall into? This kind of criteria actually really help, because it's not just about moving from zero to product market fit. It's like, have you been able to look into these criteria? Do they fit? Is it a problem big enough to solve? Is it a problem that depends on an infrastructure to function? So if you're building something that you want to bring to product market fit, and there are so many other dependencies that you don't have control over, and your problem is not big enough, it might be a lot more difficult. But then, best fit, I would say, is that has actually helped over time, right? Is from zero to product market fit, understand the business side of what you're doing for you to stay longer in the business. Because if you stay longer in there, even if you pivot, you actually find Goshen at the end, because you're able to, as long as the problem is big enough, you're able to iterate, you have the liberty to try this, try that, until you find exactly what needs to solve the problem. And by then, you're already closer to product market fit, because at that point, people actually love your product, it's actually solving their problem. But the question now is, are you able to stay longer in the game to survive that?
And that's a lot of challenge, where sometimes you say, oh, I think this is an interesting idea to actually pursue. Yeah. But along the journey, you find out that maybe people really don't need it as much as you think that they need it. I attended the Open Source Festival recently, and someone said, oh, he loves looking for problems. And then whatever problem you even decide to pick to solve, you need to look for the AR factor. That is, are you solving it faster? Are you solving it cheaper? So I think it also comes better. So once you can find out that, oh, this is what I'm solving, and this is like my unique perspective, then you can now keep trying to solve it, and then you are pursuing it until you give it that time you talk about, till you find out product market fit. But then I still want to ask again, when should you just even drop an idea? Because you talk about time, like stay long enough. Sometimes you don't have the good enough infrastructure. Sometimes it's not like the perfect timing. So when should you drop an idea, or when should you just like keep going? If you keep going, money is also burning. And then sometimes, you just want to maybe pivot to something else that can help you make money.
So I would say from experience here, because I've been opportunity to be in companies that they've been able to pivot 1-2 times. So I can speak from that point of view. I would say that number one, the time factor is as a result of the resources you have. So, for example, you have an 18 months runway. The problem is big enough, you know it's big enough. You've narrowed it down to a subset of what you want to do, right? Best fit is to understand how you want to manage the resource with the lifeline that you have. As long as the problem is big enough, the feedback is great, the iterations you've made over time is tending towards that possibility. And your market, again, the problem is big enough and there's a market for it. It's just a question of how long can I go? But I'll get there. That's one. In a case where you know, by experiment, by trials, you've done this, you know that this market is not big enough. The problem is there. But there are some other dependencies. Number one, there are dependencies. That's the craziest, because you cannot control that. There are a lot of dependencies. It might be a good time to look at pivoting. There are a lot of dependencies that you cannot control. You don't see anything happening in that regard over a period. I mean, we've had really, smart guys build startup and all stuff that they had to close because they came too early. And at some point, we're not so big on merger and acquisition in Africa, so things like that shouldn't be a problem. You should just merge into a bigger entity that it is something of what they're solving, right? That could just be your exit, right? But we're not so big on that, so most of them just wind down. Some of them came earlier than they should. In a case like that, what do you advise? So, again, is understand that the problem you're solving, as long as you're not getting the right metrics, again, for each stage of the company, you have a metrics you're tracking. If you're not getting that metrics actually, and you realize that the market is not big enough for this problem you're solving, it can be a good time to look at pivoting. Again, but if you know it's big enough, just try to survive. I mean, there is a book I read, it's called Only the Paranoid Survive, right? So, as long as you are building, you need to be paranoid at the same time. But then, you need to be stoic enough to be able to, as long as you know, and the metrics are
sure.
showing you. It might not just be that time, but if you're able to stay longer in the game, you would actually make. So I've experienced it, worked in companies like that, so I know how pivoted twice. How we know exactly how these things have happened, right? And we've seen the progress because you didn't just die, you had to grow. So again, a lot of things can happen along the line. It might not even end up into you closing down. It might need you have to know when to stop and when to move forward.
You brilliantly like put it together. The importance of just like going when you're absolutely sure, and then like being very truthful to yourself. If you're like knowing the key metrics you should be pursuing, once you see that these are the things that we thought that the product should do, if it's no more doing it, people are not responding as they need to respond. It's either you try and make adjustments, go for something bigger, or you just like explore new directions. Can be tough at times, but sometimes you just need to kill the idea and just like.
And just to add to that, one very important metric, which is you. So I would say that it's not easy being an entrepreneur in this part of the world. I mean, anywhere in the world, actually.
A lot of things can be against you.
These guys are, okay, I would say I've done something partly. So I can speak from that point of view that it's not easy running the startup. It's not. Aside of every other, elements we've discussed, this condition, this, if you meet this and this, okay, I should stop, I should move. It's also the person or the people itself. If you don't have any sort of energy in you to move forward, even if you are very close to Goshen, you might not get there. So that person itself or the people itself also play. That's why they say choose your co-founder, right? Because sometimes you can be all gone and dead. Your co-founder is the right frame of mind, or one other person on the team is the right frame of mind to give a new perspective that would help. Because at that point, you're not willing to move forward. And funny, you might be actually close to Goshen, and all you need is just a simple pivot.
Yeah, drained already. But you have the kind of people around you that can.
You are drained already. You spent money. It's not easy. You're paying salary. Revenue is zero. So it's not easy, right? As well to run business, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're paying a lot on infrastructure and things like that. Like if you're not cutting down costs and all, it might be very difficult. So at that point, you feel like you don't want to move forward anymore. So it also depends on the person. Regardless of the criteria, I will say, this condition, this and that. The person or the team now, the people, let me just box it. The people itself also matter if they are willing to move forward or not. As long as they have the grit to move forward. The grit is the most important thing.
You've been doing a lot of cool stuff in the product management sector industry, but you're also big on open source, contributing, and mentoring. So I'd love to know, like, why open source, and then why contributing? Like, you have this idea, which is very obvious from what you post, how you're like building Terntribe, a community of like contributing to open source to and then helping other younger products and project managers and other areas. So why that?
For me, at some point in my career, I just figured that there is more to building that gives more satisfaction and fulfillment. Obviously, I get a lot of fulfillment, doing work as when things are moving very far, and you get the fulfillment, right? But outside of that, there's also a part that I looked into that I figured it is something that would also let me deploy myself into something that would help people. With mentoring, the area of open source, building for social innovation. It is the idea of I need to also empty myself. I've always been big on, as long as you're taking, you also need to empty yourself. You're taking from the job, the experience is helping you, you're becoming better. Just try and empty yourself somewhere else. So the idea of building that came from, the idea of Terntribe didn't actually come from it didn't start rather from open source and all that. It came from literally helping people gain experience getting into tech. That was the primary idea. Is okay, you guys are starting out, you don't have something in your portfolio that is live or something that you can do. Fantastic, come together, do something, push it. That would serve as your experience. You work with, now you have cross-functional skills, you've been able to work with teams, you've been able to communicate. That's already helping. That was the primary idea. At some point we had to metamorphose it to something bigger because we realized, don't just build anything then. How about outside of you building something that helps your career, also build that stuff to help some other people. So we can, okay, definitely need to make it open source because it's larger and bigger than you. It needs to be something that is, the source code is open to everybody to modify, use, do all of so they can reuse this, what you're building as well for greater good and for social impact. So that was the start. Then we need to top it all and say, let's make this something that people can actually benefit from, as opposed to you can build something and I know it's part of the experience, but nobody that cannot pay for it is benefiting from it. It just open it for everybody. So we came up to that, then the idea of social innovation just helped, make it much more stronger, because now we are seeing that the innovation part of it is to come in because everybody's building. Not everybody would focus on building solution that I wouldn't say free is the word, but it's available for people to use that solves one of the social challenges that we have, be it in health, in education, in any industry really. Like, who is then focusing on building social innovation? I know we have a lot of social enterprises that actually do that, right? But one point of view is that let's build something that actually solve one of these social challenges, right? A very brilliant one, is, for neurodivergent individuals that we came up with that is supposed to help diagnose and also create like a learning path and things like that. Something that speaks to more of the social innovation. So for us, that is more of our fulfillment, is that we are building something that help these entities actually become better and is solving one of the social challenges that we can find around us. Like in one of the article I wrote some time ago, about, I think it was 2 months ago, about why I got into social innovation. I think I identified the need to do something that is impacting people by extending yourself in whatever capacity that you find yourself. It's not just building cool stuff, it's also building cool stuff that is actually helping the next person. So that's how everything comes together for us, and that was actually the main idea, is receive everything through your experience and work.
Also extend and share to people.
And then that also with mentorship, even though it's not really easy doing mentorship, right? Because, your work is choking, there's a lot of things and all. But at least in every opportunity, I still find I try to still let me extend myself, because knowledge sharing is very big. I'm very big on knowledge sharing, right? I come from a home of teachers, so that instinct is there to always want to extend or teach or lecture or do something that would help the other person.
Some listeners might just not even understand or know what open source is all about. Yeah. So I want you to break it down more simply. Yeah. What is open source? And then how can maybe a designer, developer, or even just a student in school currently, how can they be part of open source? How can they start contributing?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, see it as you're doing something, but because you're running it in the way you're running it, you own proprietary to everything that you use to build it out because of the focus. Now, imagine you're building a software in that regard, and you want more people to use the software, so you're opening some part of the source code, so maybe in the entire source code in this case, you're opening it up to people so they can view, they can reuse, they can modify for so many other things. That's a simple idea of open source, is that it's reusable, it's open, people can see it, and you're not holding on to, if a business always want to hold on.
Their cost strength,
that is it. But some people run a mix of it. I'll give an example. OpenAI, they recently a part of, you see, so they still build like a business, like obviously a startup that has a business part of it, but they still open a part of it. So some entities also combine it in a way that they build a lot of build stuff and they just make a part of it open. Now people are able to build cool stuff using that without having to consider how much am I paying for this. And the several use cases I've seen, very interesting use cases to be honest, because these use cases also help do more in terms of building small solutions that can actually help people and give them a better life.
But I also saw the news when OpenAI opened that part out for open source, and like people are contributing. So but then for people that just even want to start out, whether I want to contribute as a writer or designer, what are like first steps they can take?
So in any capacity, right, you can start. So one beautiful thing about it is that see it as a community now trying to play their part, no matter how small, in making something better. So whether you're coming as a writer, you're coming as a developer, it is find a small piece of the entire thing that is being built and
Where
plug
can they find
yourself
that
in.
small piece?
So interestingly, right, we do some stuff at Terntribe, right? But there's so many other like open source communities as well. You know, Oscar is there. That you can find yourself in and you're able to contribute. For us, you can come in and there's a small piece of what you want to do. You can pick it up. It could be just maybe picking up some test cases, or you want to test some of the products, provide your feedback. That's already contributing, because ideally in a standard company setup, there are people that do that. Yeah. So we're saying as a community, how about you pick a small piece of this, whether you're writing an article about that solution for a new release, or you're part of people writing the documentation. If you're a technical writer, for example, you're able to put up, very technical explanation of what is to come out. Or you're a developer, you want to add one part of it, you want to fix a bug, you want to do something small, you're already contributing. It doesn't have to be big and grandeur for you to be able to contribute to open source. So find the community, be a part of it, and actually contribute. Not just join for the, but actually contribute. No matter how small, really, but contribute, because every drop it actually makes the whole thing come together. So just find yourself in the community and be a part of it.
A bit about mentorship, right? So if you sit with a young product manager now, even though you said you really have enough time, but now that we have you, let's dig into this. If you sit with a young project manager now that is possibly uncertain or is currently stuck with a particular process or a particular issue, maybe with a product or with team members, what advice would you share to that person to take them through that process?
Yeah, good question. I think for me is that the first mindset you bring into product management or product project matters. Remember the initial conversation we had around the mindset, right? The mindset helps navigating this kind of chaos. You're on a product, you're on a role, I would say is ensure that, again, people. Number two is also putting a bit of process in place that can help. Because at the end of the day, you can get lost into getting things done and you don't have a process that guides that engagement. So product process, I would say, very big on it. I mean, maybe this is what brings me to the trial of success, right? Right. It is still the people. It is still the process you put in place. Like someone once said that the product itself is not the core technology, right? As fantastic as it is the process of solving the problem that is the product itself. Which means that either you are using Excel or using a very fantastic product that you built, very fantastic. The process of solving that problem is exactly the product, right? Because it means that you're not just tuning in towards the technology, you're tuning into how you're actually solving the customer problem. So if you understand that and if you want to put in a process for managing the people or relating with the people that are actually building this, also do note that it is not cast in stone. It doesn't have to be one technology. Sometimes we always want to be fixated on the product. Rather, define the solution too. It could help in how you are merging these ideas together. So again, is the people know how to relate, know how to serve leadership and all. Especially when you have chaos, that's a way out of it. And also think from the solution point of view as opposed to the product, and have some level of processes that can also guide you coming out of that particular situation. I mean, I know it's not exactly practical, but it is sort of like a framework that works, right? The people, the process, the product framework that works in a way that you're able to identify this and you're able to pick it from there on. Ensure that you have the framework in place. Again, what I said might not be exactly practical, but the framework will actually help in navigating. Again, an experience-based role. But if you understand some of these frameworks, it really help in how you think and navigate your way out of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to put it. Like, it's such an interesting framework too, right? And sometimes even when you're in a particular fix or there is chaos, but then once you can figure out, okay, the challenge I'm having, which part of this framework is the problem coming from? It might be maybe, there's an issue with the product, or maybe it's just it's a people thing.
The people thing,
I can fix this.
Or is it process thing, for example,
And once you can find, this is where I have challenge, you can now work on trying to solve that particular thing. And also what you said is also very insightful. Not focusing entirely on the product, but focus on what you are solving.
Yeah.
So over the time, you might need to adjust how the product functions, the provider of the product, resources you are using to get the product achieved. Or once you know that, oh, this is what we are solving for, you can make slight changes, change providers here, change platforms here, make this adjustment, and overall you are still able to achieve the end goal of like providing good solution. Fast forward to, let's say, 10 years to this time, what kind of Africa or Nigeria do you think you would want to work, whether as a product manager, community builder, open source contributor, should have built?
I believe that the landscape in Africa, right, narrowed down to Nigeria, is going to be a lot more different looking at everything that's happening right now. Either in the product management space, community building, how people are building community now. Things are definitely changing. So where I see this happening is that we've been able to build a lot of community. I'll start from community now. We've been able to build a lot of community that can survive on its own. It's not easy to build community, especially when you're building a community that is open source. We've had big guys, some of these guys build very large community, but you don't find many of them, right, that are actually thriving, right? But I think that next 10 years, a lot of things are coming up now that will really help and aid. As the industry grows over the years, you have more people moving into higher roles, higher position, more years of experience. The industry becomes much more mature. So it's easier in the sense that community building then becomes much more solid. People are able to run community for a long period and they've learned through the curve on how to effectively run the community. For me, I think my part in that is very simple, is also to build the community. So in product management, it's interesting. Like I mentioned, we are now there's still like very small number of senior product managers because of the industry, right? Maybe now you find people that are like 8 years in product, 9 years in product, that they actually started as product. Maybe you find some of them now, right? Which is a very small pocket. It means it's scarce, sort of. But then as we move along, people continue to grow, right? So in that same breath, I would say my own contribution would be, I would have been able to mentor a lot of product managers during that period, primarily build very massive products in Africa. I think I'm more focused around how payment is moving now in Africa. In 10 years, I think it's just mentoring people, contributing my quota to actually teach more people to understand how to extend themselves beyond just product management. Very important. In any industry you find yourself, extend yourself. Knowledge gap would just help. If you do it, few things around operations, product operations and all that, it will really help with understanding the whole thing, right? So it's easier for you to know how to come in, when to come in. So in 10 years, I know that my role is going to change at some point. I know. It's beginning to shape more into someone that can actually get things done, understanding all the pieces and able to put it together beyond just products. Because now I'm doing some sort of operation, I'm doing card acquiring with other operations, by the way. And I'm not doing finance, but I'm learning and leaning and helping out there so that I can learn faster how treasury works in this case, how your recon and settlement works, a lot of things, how you marginalize and all of that. So a lot of the things I'm learning, it simply means that I don't do products in 10 years.
I think that's the beautiful part of our journey, right? Like just evolving and then acquiring and just
and learning. I keep doing the art thing. It's chaotic, it's crazy. In my very small years in payment and fintech, I know it's chaotic, it's problematic. If compliance come now, what regulation hits you now, you will be running up and down. It's very, very chaotic. That days like that I'm wondering, what's going on?
And they say there's like Fridays in Nigeria when CBN release their
that's when exactly. So over the weekend, you're already thinking about what happened on Monday. You see how these things were very chaotic. That sometimes your weekend are not the same. But at the same time, as long as it's chaotic, I love it.
Beautiful.
Because you just grow faster, to be honest. Like things that you normally would not pick up on, and you will just pick it faster.
In wrapping up finally, so there may be a FUTA student that's currently studying. That's currently studying now, and they're watching this video now, or maybe someone that is just early in their career, right? So what would you leave them with that can help them continue to grow, continue to pursue their dreams, for them to really do amazing exploits?
Well, I would say do hard things, obviously. Do the hard thing. I know it's easy to like find yourself in a place where you're very complacent. Like there's a saying, pressure in itself is an element for growth. So try as much as possible to find yourself in an environment where there's pressure, in a good way too. Find yourself in that environment because that's how you actually grow faster. What you can cover in 2 years, it might take you more than that if you're not in that kind of environment that would speed up your growth and you're able to learn faster, pick up the hard things and get yourself into very difficult things. An example of that is I'm trying to get into an MSL. There's this MasterCard, program that is not really out there. It's called an MSL where they give, that's the program they have for acquirers, banks now. So there's sort of opportunity for me to get into that sort of. It's very difficult looking at what I've heard them teach because you have to go through a lot of courses and all, training and all. But I find it exciting because it's the hard thing. By the time I'm out of there, more knowledge, more understanding of how these things work.
You get the rewards from...
Exactly. So you already understand these things. So I would say, bro, focus on doing the hard thing. It's very important. Get yourself in a place where there's a lot of pressure. And the God factor is always going to be there. As you grow, build our careers and all, the God factor is there. There's always an element of luck. That I think there's I can't remember his name now. Sometime wrote it in his book that explicitly stated. I mean, most people don't talk about the element of luck when it comes to things like this. But then luck is there, right? In some instances, as a Christian, you call it grace, and our favor now in this term, or maybe call it divine coincidences, or you call it maybe it's an opportune time, for example, Kairos moment, like people call it, right? But it happens. It's there. It's sort of like luck, what people call it. Do your work hard like you're not going to pray, but also pray like you're not working hard because that element is also going to be there. And also be open to picking up opportunities. No matter how small the opportunity, pick it up. So again, do the hard things. There's an element of luck there. Pray, do what you saw you can do. When you find yourself in a place where there's an opportunity to pick up something that most people would know how to pick up, try. Over the time, you have to cut yourself off it because sometimes people just say, okay, because it's the one that picks up any, they can just
push.
But there is a point that just pick up anything that you can, like serve as an opportunity for you to grow and learn. Pick it up. It will really go a long way because that's what forms your growth at the end of the day. So I mean, these are my advices, I would say.
That's like a beautiful way to actually wrap the episode, right? Do the hard things, do the work, extend yourself, stretch yourself. A lot of times, if we're in spaces where we're like very comfortable, it means that we are not pursuing big things, but then just keep going, and then the God factor.
Yeah,
you can't take it away. Whether you want to call it luck, it's always there.
It's always there.
You need to have created the opportunities, done a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
A lot of surface area, increase the surface area. So, and once you are prepared, the opportunity comes. Just push in, take it, and then you find yourself doing cool and amazing excellent. Thank you so much, Tobi Adara, for doing this with us.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's been a very fun conversation with you.
Absolutely. I'm very insightful. Thank you to everyone watching or listening on whatever platform. I'm sure you found this episode valuable. We're going to bring top and amazing people doing cool stuff to just inspire and motivate your own amazing exploits. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.